Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
Proclamation of the Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus went to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, also called the Sea of Tiberias. A large crowd kept following him because they saw the signs that he was doing to the sick. Then Jesus went up the mountain and sat down with his disciples. Now, the Passover, the festival, was near. And when Jesus looked up and saw a large crowd coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread for these people to eat?" And Philip said to him, Jesus said this to test him, for he himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 6 months' wages would not buy enough bread for each of them to get a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are they among so many people?" And Jesus said, "Make the people sit down." Now there was a great deal of grass in the place. So they sat down, about 5,000 in number. Then Jesus took the loaves and said, when he had given thanks, distributed them to those who were seated. So also the fish, as much as they wanted. When they were satisfied, he told his disciples, "Gather up the fragments left over, so that nothing may be lost." So they gathered them up, and from the fragments of the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten, they filled 12 baskets. When the people saw the sign that Jesus had done, they began to say, "This is indeed the prophet who is to come into the world." And when Jesus realized that they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, he withdrew again to the mountain by himself. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Well, this is a very unusual Sunday. The reason is because ordinarily you don't find the first reading from the Hebrew Scriptures, the Old Testament, which is so closely allied to the Gospel. But if you listen very closely, you'll notice how they are very closely allied. In the first reading we heard how a man brought, 20 barley loaves to Elisha. Elisha was the one that took over from Elijah, the prophet. And he said to him, "Now you give these to the 100 men there." And the man says, "Well, how's that going to be possible? I can't do that. I mean, there's 100 men out there." And then Elisha says, "You do it, because there is going to be some left over." What do you notice in the gospel? Almost the same thing. Here Jesus goes out into the desert, and all these people gather around him, 5,000 people. And what does he do? He says, "How is this going to be possible Philip says, to feed all these people. Can't do that. There's 5 barley loaves and a couple of fish. This is one of the miracles of Jesus that's recorded in every one of the Gospels. The Gospel of Matthew, the Gospel of Mark, the Gospel of Luke, the Gospel of John. Very good, you got them. So it was something that they wanted to be sure was passed on. In other words, that was such a tremendous gift that Jesus gave them. But if you were there, imagine that you were there, and the food was being passed around, what would you do? What's the key word that you would do? Share. Share, that's the key word, yes. Share. And I think that's so important, that we are able to share with others. In other words, when we have so much, we have so much to be grateful for to God, that we need to share then. I remember when I went to the seminary up at Mount Calvary. This was in high school. And we were 6 of us at table. So the food was shared. First came out the potatoes, then came out the vegetable, then came out the meat. But the individual who started sharing as we went around, we had to make sure that the last person got some. So we had to share them. We had an ability to be able to share them with others. And this past week, I was up north at a cottage with my family. And you know what I noticed there? When we ate our meals, we took time and we shared. We shared our stories. We shared our time together. Because so often what happens, particularly in the family, it's eat and run. Eat and run. Eat and do the dishes. Get it over with. Rather than say, no, take time to share with one another. I think that's so important for us. Because we live in such a fast-paced society, don't we? Everything's run, move, move, move. You'll notice that on the roads, everybody's moving. If the speed limit is 70 miles an hour, they're going what? 75, 80. So what am I doing? I'm going 65. Everybody's passing me. Shoot, shoot, shoot. I say, oh, okay. But the ability to be able to just slow down, that's why I think it's so important for us to come together and to share in this meal, which is even far better than any meal we ever partook of. Much better. It really is. Because what do we share here? All of us, we come together as a family of God, and then we share in the Eucharist, the body and blood of Jesus Christ. And can you think of anything even more important than that? But the ability to be able to take our time to do that, to slow down, allow God to really touch our lives. I think that's so important for us, to be able to do that. And then, once we leave here, what are we to do? Share. Share. That's right. Can we do that?
Yes.